Wow, this is great. First of all, really welcome, and thank you for being here. I've got a little thing, here we go. Yeah. It's been quite a journey to get here, and I'm actually going to take us a little bit back to some of the background of how we got here and what we really hope to achieve. But most of all, it's really a real privilege and an honor for us, and we're really deeply humbled that you've all come to Barcelona for the second Teach to Reach. So just a huge and profuse and profound thank you. You know, at our inaugural summit last year, and you'll recall, it's there, the picture, you know, we spent 3 days discussing learning science with colleagues not from our field at all, but from education and how people learn, and how we can actually, you know, take the lessons and apply them to our training. And we began to explore how new approaches could be utilized. There have been significant advancements in immunization. Let's not ignore it, you know, but we also recognize that vaccine-preventable deaths really continue to affect the poorest people in the parts and most vulnerable groups. And immunization coverage and equity, I think we all realize, is more, and this from the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, than investments in newer vaccines, in space-age cold chain equipment, in drones. We need to invest in the routine immunization system, and we know this to the core of our hearts. And we also need to invest in the people who make it function, because at the end of the day, it's that health worker in the field who interact with a caregiver and a child that make this all happen. And for the need to invest across the RI system has really been I think, beautifully outlined in the WHO GRISP document, and really calls out how vaccinators and district managers need to really have consistent access to capacity building to strengthen their performance, and the importance of supportive supervision. And I know many of us in this room are actively involved in the strategies to support staff and ensuring that training and performance improvement, and trying to establish a culture of health worker training. But I also want to take you back a little bit. When the foundation, as you know, we really had 2 tiers of work really moving into from 2005 onwards, really on new vaccines through our investments in Gavi and also through polio eradication. And when we first sort of established the routine immunization focus, was really a recognition that the underpinnings of success of Gavi and new vaccines and polio eradication rested on a strong routine immunization. But we didn't honestly know altogether what we were doing, and we had a small staff and a small budget. And so our initial area of focus was in things that we felt more comfortable in: data, financing, cold chain, supply chain, and really looking at our key geographies. But we also realized that there were other things that were really vitally important to immunization. And so we really crafted what we called internally, at least, a strategic learning agenda headed up by Molly Abruzzese, to really think about how could we actually be more involved in capacity building, in performance and management, and training and learning. So we really have Molly to thank us for really getting us to this point, at least in the foundation. So when we actually first went to our co-chairs in the foundation, when we actually present a new strategy, we need to get Bill and Melinda to approve. We work for a family foundation. And they were absolutely gung-ho because they recognized that the coverage and equity targets we had all ascribed to, signed on for in Gavi and the Global Vaccine Action Plan just wouldn't be reached. And it was really clear that a well-trained health task force is absolutely critical to moving things forward in immunization. But then we also have a really stark reminder. We spend considerable resources in training and learning in our field of immunization. This is just one example. This is Gavi's health system funding platform. But we're spending an absolute fortune in training and innovation and workplace. We also do this in the grants that we provide to many, many, many organizations where training and learning is a significant part. Here's just one example, though, you know, a slide. This is the Ethiopia HSS. But, you know, as you can see that we are absolutely spending, if you look across, You know, we're over $13 million alone, but this is repeated in every single country that we work in. And I think, sadly, we always tend to rely on sort of the cascade model of training. And I think we know deep in our hearts that this isn't actually the most effective. I mean, in many ways, this is really coming out of the sort of the 17th century of where we do things. But we also, we perpetuate this, and it's because it's difficult and it's hard to change, and we recognize that. We have a culture where we pay rewards and per diems based on training attendance rather than how we actually learn. So how do we change all this? And we've been doing this for about 40 years. And we know that no method is particularly, you know, we know that putting a bunch of people in a room with a small PowerPoint slide is not effective, but we persist in doing it. So what have we really learned? And when we did this, is we do know from the evidence, and Nathan will come into this shortly, that one-way lecture-style tactics and trainings really have a very poor effect on learning outcomes. And there are better opportunities out there that we can draw on. When we actually asked, you know, you all last year, what in fact trainings meant for you, this was the word cloud, and boring and irrelevant was really the main name of the game. And I suspect if we did this in any of our settings, we would actually probably find the same thing. But let's talk about what we really do know about adults and learning. And as I say, Nathan and the speakers who follow will really take us through some things. But adults need to know why they are learning something, and they truly need to believe that it will help them accomplish their own personal goals. People need to have the opportunity to have a hands-on problem approach to learning, and it's practice, practice, and practice. And the more practice people get, the better they perform. And people want to apply new knowledge and skills immediately, and they need the support and resources to help them to do this and to avoid falling back on old habits. But most of all, learning is more than just paying participants to show up, to sit through long PowerPoints and memorize facts and figures as though we were out of some Charles Dickens novel. It's really best achieved when we're engaged and when people have a chance to offer up their ideas, collaborate, and test solutions during the course of a training. So with this in mind, you know, our team at the Foundation and all of you in this room are really actually embarking on a pretty big journey here of how do we shake up the current state of immunization training. And we need more to join this effort to disrupt the status quo. From our perspective in the Foundation, you know, we're really thinking how we can, through our grant making, encourage more than just the paying of per diems for attending training, and how can we link incentives to learning and the demonstration of knowledge and skills. And we would really love over the course of the next couple of days for any feedback and thoughts you have of how we can effectively do this. We're very, very, very much on a learning agenda here. And the challenge we have when we leave is, can we actually leave this meeting with very, very, very concrete steps of things we can each do in our organization, in our countries, in our daily work that will change the way we do immunization training? I'm sure I'm out of sync with the slides, but let's not worry about it. Amanda will give me a flick later. I'm terrible with these things. But the other piece that we really need to really focus on, and I once again really hope we can spend some time thinking about this, is measurement and how we can measure the impact of the training capacity building efforts beyond the number of people who show up for a meeting. And we think this is actually going to be pretty important as we measure the level of engagement and how we're making progress in this field of immunization training. And I actually went too far forward here. But we're all here today and sitting in this room because we recognize that there's a need to change the way we do immunization training, and it's about making a difference. I'm also really excited about actually the new format we're exploring in this year's summit. As George said, over the next couple of days, each of you are going to be in a group assigned to brainstorming new strategies to improving immunization training. And each group is then going to present its findings to a group of peer reviewers. So we're each of us going to be on the hot seat here. We're hoping that everyone is going to get to know everyone in this room and your peer a little better, and really to work together to find a common solution. And we thought you might appreciate putting the theory that we'd really learned so much about last year into action. Finally, I want to actually share, oops, go back a bit, a little bit of something from last year. At the end of the Teach to Reach last year, if you'll recall, I asked everyone, members, and it's so good to see so many of you back again, what you wanted to see different in this time if we were to meet a year from then. And several themes emerged, but the top responses were, the first was, how do we incorporate best practices into training? The second was, how do we more openly share lessons at the global and country levels? And the third was, how do we integrate digital e-learning into training programs? So as we go through the next 2 days, we hope that you will really see your feedback reflected in the programming of this meeting. But most of all, I want to say we really do see this opportunity here to make a difference. We hope that you enjoy your time here and you leave inspired to disrupt the status quo, and that we actually do things differently in immunization training and capacity building. And finally, I really want to say that you all in this room are doing incredible work. It's often unrecognized. It's the backbone of what actually needs to happen in countries. And really want to thank you profusely for your passion, commitment, for being here today, and for working on this journey to improve immunization training. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much and turn it back to George, the panel, and welcome, and thank you.